Thank you, God, for this day that you have given us. As we come to be about the county business, we ask that you would bless us in all decisions that we make. In your name we pray. We say together, amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Motion to approve meetings from May.
So move.
Moved and properly second. All in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it, so it is. Site plan, Todd Allen. Todd Allen.
I don't see him here. It's table.
Motion to table.
Second.
Moved and properly second. All in favor? Sign of aye. Ayes have it. Motion to open public hearing.
So move.
Second.
Motion and properly second. All in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it. Alicia Matthews.
Good morning. My name is Alicia Matthews, and I'm the founder of Steps Academy Learning Center. I'm asking for zoning approval to bring a small child care program to Farm Haven. This program will support ages 5 through 10 with tutoring, homework help, and a mentorship in a safe, structured environment. This program is not just about academics, but it's also about community. I want to serve local families by giving their children a safe place to grow, learn, and be supported. I am committed to being a good neighbor, respectful of the noise, traffic, and safety. My goal is to strengthen the community of Farm Haven and not to disrupt it. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Any questions?
I have some questions. What age group did you say?
5 to 10.
On this, what you're asking is a conditional use for daycare center on this particular lot,
Correct.
and you're asking, right now, there are 2 houses on that lot.
Correct.
Are you going to use those houses?
One is in use and the other one is just a storage, well, I use it for storage.
You're gonna use it as storage. What's the use of the house?
The first one, I live in that first house.
That's your house?
Yes.
Okay, all right. And your intent is to build a child care facility to the side of that house?
Correct.
Okay, 480 square feet or 12 by 40?
Correct, to accommodate about 10 to 15 students.
Okay. In that facility, will there be bathrooms and hallways, kitchen, whatever?
Yes,
It will be?
Yes.
Okay. All right, and then do you have any idea of the outside play area?
yes.
How big it will be?
About 500 square feet,
Okay.
and that can be adjusted if needed, so I can kind of go by the bylaws.
All right, so you come under the health department rules for daycare center and for septic system.
Yes,
All right, what type septic system do you have currently?
the residential one, not particularly sure.
There's not public sewer, water and sewer out there. You're probably on a water association, number one. Now,
Correct, on a-
Secondly,
on a-
your septic system, is it a septic tank or a septic treatment plant or
Right now, it's a septic tank.
a septic tank? Okay. Would you know if you have an easement on the adjacent land for the field line of that septic tank?
I'm not sure.
All right. Reason I'm asking all these questions, your health department requires 2 acres for a septic system, and this parcel is, I think, .93, slightly less than 1 acre. Have you talked to the health department about any of this?
I have not.
All right. I think you're going to need to do that. I don't think they're gonna allow you to do this.
Okay.
I'm not sure about that, but I think you need to talk to them. Have you talked to them also about the requirements for a daycare center?
Yes, ma'am, I have.
All right. So you have to have 35 square feet per child,
Correct.
and the play area has to be 75 square
Feet per
feet.
child.
All right, so what is your capacity you're thinking about?
The capacity, no more than 15.
How many?
No more than 15.
No more than 15. Your 480 facility will only accommodate probably 9.
Okay, I understand that.
So, and then, your outdoor play area will accommodate maybe less than that if it's only 500 square feet. So, I think you've got some questions that you need to get answered from the health department first.
Okay.
And for that reason, I would like to, table this. So I make a motion that we table this until you get these answers, and we'll be glad to help you with any of questions, anything you need to work on.
Okay,
Okay.
all right. Thank you.
Wait, you got a motion on the floor? Do a second.
Do you have room to expand?
I definitely have room to expand.
You do? Okay.
Let me make another point that we need to clarify. This is in an A1 district, A1 zoning district, and you're asking for conditional use. All right, A1 also requires 2 acres. So that now she's changing the use. And in an A1, you cannot expand a non-conforming use. You can't add on, expand. You can take away, but you can't add on. So she's also facing that.
Ms. McCarty, the regulations in there do allow it to go down to 1 acre, and lots of record are up to the health department. This was a prior deed prior to our.
So we could give her a zoning variance maybe to allow her to expand on a non-conforming lot?
Well, it's gonna be based on, the lot is conforming, because the lot, we can go down to 1 acre
In an A1?
in an A1.
Okay.
But it's gonna be based on the health department. If the
Right.
health department does not approve it, then it won't happen.
Right, and the health department did say that I would have to go through you all first and then come to them, and they would
I
make.
would take this to them
Okay,
and see what they, of course, I think you have vacant land around you might could purchase if you needed to, but anyway, I would go there first.
yes, ma'am.
Okay.
But they did say that I would have to go through zoning first, so I'm just
Oh,
kind of
really?
following suit, like trying to go
Okay.
step by step.
All right.
As
So they send you to us?
yes, because they said the first step would be zoning. They said go through zoning and then come to us.
Okay.
Okay.
So you've got a motion on the floor that's been seconded right now, assuming that you still want to move forward with tabling this. But based on the representation that she's just made, that the health department has told her to come here first. What you could do, should you so be inclined, would be now entertain a substitute motion to do whatever you want to do, which sounds like maybe there's some thinking that this would be approved, conditioned on approval from the health department. If all of your other answers have been clear, I'm not telling you how to vote, I'm not suggesting that, I'm just giving you your options. Or you can move forward with a vote on your motion to table.
So you say we can go down to 1 acre?
Correct.
It sounds like she can't move forward till.
All right, I'll amend my motion.
You want to amend your motion
Right.
for conditional?
that
Approval
conditional
conditioned
approval.
on health department approval.
Exactly.
Okay. So that's the substitute motion. Is there a
Yes,
second to
I'll
that?
second.
Second, okay.
Been motion and properly, second with the substitute motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it, so it is.
All right, thank you.
Ms. Matthews, you will still have to go through site plan approval if this gets through the health department
Okay,
on the construction of
okay,
the building, and you have to
Okay.
come back here.
okay. All right, thank you.
Robert Lloyd.
Good morning, I'm Bob Lloyd. I'm purchasing the Movie Town RV Park at the end of the month, and additional 20 acres that adjoins it to the east. And we're requesting a conditional use to expand the RV park on that 20 acres. Are there any questions that I can answer?
You already have an existing building there?
May I approach?
Yeah.
This is the existing RV park right here, and then this is the 20 acres, so it's adjacent to it. Borelli Road is out here, so it's in the back, adjacent to the existing.
Okay. Questions? Any opposition? I entertain a motion.
I move that we will accept the petition request for rezoning.
Second.
It's been moved and properly second. All in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it, so it is.
Thank you very much.
Todd Carter.
My name's Brandon Johnson. I'm representing McMaster and Associates, who's hired by Todd Carter. He's looking to rezone 2 parcels to build a 15-lot subdivision.
You said 15 lots?
Yes,
15?
yes, ma'am.
What size houses?
That would be a question for the developer. The number I've heard is around 3,000.
Just to be clear, I say Mr. Carter's on here twice for our, items number 5 and 6. And you just said 2 parcels. We're gonna need to take those one at a time.
Okay, yes, sir. Okay.
Assuming that's, you've got,
Yeah.
assuming you're tracking with me.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so right now, we're on, number 5 on your agenda.
Mr. President and Commissioners, I did talk with Ron McMaster yesterday on this. He's the engineer involved, and he said there was a 3,000 square foot minimum that would be on these properties.
Any questions?
What are your utilities out there? Will it be do you have public utilities to that site?
Yes, ma'am, we do.
You do?
Yes, ma'am.
Sewer also? We have sewer out there?
No, there'll be 2 acre lots, is that
2 acre
correct?
lots.
2 acre
Or
lots.
larger,
Septic
so they would,
treatment.
I think they're gonna be on septic systems.
Okay. All right.
Any other questions? Any opposition? Step to the mic.
My name's Terry Grabiak, and it's my wife Annie. Is this property off of Gray Hill Road? or Dave Brown?
It's gonna be off both of them.
And how many lots are they trying to put in there? We're opposed to a lot of houses. I mean, it's, an area where they have like 5-acre lots, you know, some in the area there. And we kind of prefer not to have 50, 60 houses put in there. In the whole total area? Okay.
Or is that like a phase 1, phase 2 deal where they add to?
No, that's it. It's 15 with the 3,000 square foot.
Okay,
Because
where's the entrance gonna
Would you
come?
speak in the
gonna
mic?
come in off of
Sir,
Dave Brown?
speak in the
Sir.
mic.
Oh, is the entrance gonna come off of Dave Brown, or is it gonna come off of Gray Hill?
Right now, we're talking about the lot coming off Dave Brown. Is that correct?
I believe that's correct.
Yes.
That's what it shows here.
All right, would,
Yeah, Dave Brown, I believe.
How are you accessing the property? Will it be off Gray Hill or Dave Brown?
There'll be an entrance on both of them.
Cause Gray Hill is not gonna handle 2 vehicles going up and down it without somebody running off the road. Cause the road's not wide enough. I'm the only person that lives on the road. And, it's just not, you know, if somebody meets a truck or something, unless you're in another truck, you can't run off the road, cause it's gonna drag the bottom of a car. And that's what we're concerned too. The road will have to be widened or something like that if they're gonna use Gray Hill.
Well, I believe that would be a choice with the county engineer and the board of supervisors would have to take that into consideration before a plat would be filed.
Okay. All right.
Sir, I did not catch your last name.
Grabiak, G-R-A-B is in boy, I-A-K. And it appears that they might have the entrance coming right out in front of my place. I'm assuming.
I'm not sure. We can look
do you,
According to the plat, it's 2 entrances, one on Brown and one on Gray.
Yeah, cause they marked some spots. I'm assuming that's what it is. That's where they're coming in and out of.
the public notice was only on Gray Hill Road. We didn't see a public notice on Dave Brown, and it only appeared, what, a week or 2
Yeah, about a
ago?
week ago. But it was also on somebody else's property. It's not, there's another lot up there at the corner, and that's where the rezoning is. They were doing all the surveying and everything on the bigger plot there. And that's what was kind of confusing us. We wasn't sure if it was the big area that's doing, or if it was the smaller plot where the sign was. But that's all, that's what we hadn't heard anything about it. You know, all we heard was there was a subdivision coming in. We're opposed to a whole bunch of houses. We're not opposed to a few. But, you know, we just don't want to see 50, 60 houses come in there.
Okay.
It's a quiet area, and
And
there's
most
a
of
lot
us-
of wildlife out there too, so.
Most of us have acreage, you know. I have 5 acres basically. And we'd like to keep it somewhere in that neighborhood.
Okay. Would you like to respond to that?
I can look at the layout with you afterwards.
Okay, okay.
Ma'am, what was your name?
Annie,
Annie.
A-N-N-I-E, Grabiak.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
And most of the people that live around us are elderly people, and they're not, you know, able to get out too well.
Anyone else? So no, but
Thank you.
anything else you want to say?
No, sir.
Any questions? I entertain a motion.
I move that the southern portion of a 12.34 acre parcel that abuts Dave Brown Road be rezoned from A1 to R1.
Second.
It's been moved and properly second. All in favor? Aye. Ayes have it. All right, the other part.
The other part is, a larger parcel, that abuts Gray Hill Road, just to the east of the one we just did. The same subdivision.
So the 15 homes total, both of those?
Yes, ma'am.
So 15 is on
Combined.
combined?
Yes,
Oh, okay.
yes.
Entertain a motion.
I'll move to approve.
Second.
Moved and properly second. All in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it, so it is. S&C Farms.
Good morning, I'm Jeff Cox, part owner of S&C Farms and owner of Birdsong Construction. This is Gloria Tatum. She works with us on these matters, helping us getting these through the county approvals and DEQ as well. Kind of want to give you a little, some questions that was asked to me and was sent through Scott Weeks. That I made a list of stuff this morning I kind of wanted to go through to give you a little background. Myself and another man named Jay Shackelford actually purchased this property, so we actually own the property. My company, Birdsong Construction, would be the company that would be running the surface mining operation. Our long-term intended use of this property is to, there's 2 existing lakes, to enhance them, to add 2 more lakes, and then in the long run, sell it out in, 20 to 50, 100 acre parcels, for home sites. That's our long-term use for it, and we think it's gonna be maybe a 6, 8, 10-year project, so it's not gonna happen in a hurry. There is a county road that runs through the middle of the property. It's a gravel road. And I've talked with Supervisor Griffin, and I've agreed to maintain the road to where the county has no problems with it. We actually have a house in there and have a tenant that lives on the property, so we've got to keep him access, him and his family in and out, as well. We do a lot of, earthwork in Madison County and a lot of stuff going, so the intended use would be obviously for all this growth that we have, and all our trucks would come out on the Highway 51, head south to Highway 16 and go to I-55, so we would be running on MDOT roads and not county roads. There's been some concern if they shut the bridge down on Highway 51 below there, we're pretty much just shut down. It's not feasible to go north. The route would be too long, the trucking would be too expensive, and we're not allowed on Davis Crossing, and I don't want to put trucks on Davis Crossing. It's just, it wouldn't handle it. Wouldn't be good for the road or trucks or anything. The permit process, if we can get a conditional use permit approved from this and the board, then we'll go to DEQ, and I look for a 6-month process, so nothing would even happen on that property at all this year. I mean, the chances are slim of that happening and getting it approved. During all this, some of the neighbors have reached out to us and concerned about, what's gonna happen, their property, and so we've met with the neighbors across the street, the Browns, Sullivans, Jim Cruz, they're all in here today. We've talked, and I provided this little drawing. I think each one of you has a copy of in front. And if you look at it, in yellow, there's 2 existing lakes on there that won't be disturbed, and we phased this out. Supervisor Griffin wanted us to phase this out to where we would do a section, finish it, move on to where if something happened or they could, not renew our conditional use permit, and so have a little bit of enforcement to make sure that, we did what we're supposed to. Eventually, I would like to add 2 more lakes in in that farm ground on the east side of that ditch. You can see a ditch running through there that's really wooded, and then, you know, maybe parcel it out also. But I've also agreed that nothing will be done on the frontage, and I call the frontage from the ditch line towards Highway 51 to keep it preserved as is for us, the neighbors, you know, potential buyers of this property or whoever, so that still have the same view that we have now. You know, this is the fourth project like this I've done in Madison County. Second one as the owner, and we did the same thing on Old Kent Road, about a half a mile south of Highway 51. And we actually put a little temporary road, and actually somebody came in and bought the whole place. And now they're parceling it off for lots. So it's our intended use in the long run to do nothing but improve this property, you know, especially for our values and our neighbors also. You know, the county has operating guidelines, daylight, I think, to dark, no Sundays. So strictly follow county rules and regulations. We're very familiar with them, and this isn't our first time, so we kind of know what you know, what we need to do. And the one thing I was gonna add also, in case people to know that when we go to the DEQ, we also have to provide a reclamation bond. Anybody that gets a surface mining permit from the DEQ has to provide a reclamation bond, so that's just another security, knowing that if something were to happen, that there's a resource to, you know, fix it. But never had that happen, not intending it to, but just want you to know that's another little safety net for the county and for the local neighbors. So that kind of just a little summary of what I wanted to kind of go over. A lot of the neighbors are here, visited with them, visited with Reverend Brown, kind of let him know what's going on. So any questions, we'd love to answer.
Any questions from the commission? Any opposition? I entertain a motion.
I move that we will accept the petition request for the rezoning.
I'll second.
It's been moved and properly second. All in favor? Ayes. Ayes have it, so it is.
Thank you.
Brandon?
Good morning. My name's Brandon Keel. I'm here looking for rezoning on a piece of property off of North Old Canton Road for a residential development. With me is Andrew White, my attorney helping me.
Did you say Andrew White?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
May I approach? I got it. The parcel that we're looking to rezone is roughly 26 acres. That is all part of one plot of land, most of it being already rezoned, with those 28 acres, or 26 acres roughly.
Speak in the mic a little bit.
With those 26 acres roughly not being rezoned.
I do have a question just for clarification. Your request here is, that both of these parcels be rezoned to R1A.
Yes, sir, that's correct.
I think what you've attached to your petition is a section of the ordinance that is actually R1B. So, just wanted to make the clarification that that's what you're asking is for
Yes,
R1A.
that's right.
Okay.
I'm sorry?
Yeah, on his, what's attached to his petition, he attached a section of the ordinance. It's actually R1B in here. So I just wanted to make the clarification that his request was in fact R1A.
Yes, we're looking to get that section,
Yeah, it's simple error, but his request is clear that he's going to R1A is his request.
And that's what the previous was too, right?
Right.
This is already R1A.
That's correct.
So just trying to go uniform with what.
Yeah,
that's
What is-
correct.
What is the minimum lot size on a R1A?
it is, 30,500 square feet is the minimum lot.
3/4 acre.
What size houses?
2,700 to 3,000 square foot minimum.
2,700?
Yes, ma'am, to 3,000.
All right, so in what, 2016, you had it, the southern part rezoned to R1A?
Yes, ma'am.
And part of that was a 10-acre buffer zone. And
Yep.
so part of your request is to remove the buffer zone?
Yes, ma'am, that was the next number up in line, so I was just
Okay.
gonna wait on that.
And you've not decided on your entrance yet, so you've got
Um,
3 alternatives that we're looking at for entrance into this property?
No, ma'am, I believe that was from 2016. In the packet that I turned in, that had a preliminary lot layout with the entrance and exit, both of them being off North Old Canton.
I don't think we saw that.
So there's no,
We haven't seen this, okay, I got you. This is your buffer zone right here?
Yes, ma'am.
This is the buffer zone right here.
let me see this one. It's showing me the same issue. They're running with the same issue. You removed it, they're running with the same.
It's 300 there. It's 300 feet. That's a lot.
It feels like we're being backwards here. Feels like we're going backwards here. Andy, do we need to, are we going backwards here? Do we need to address the buffer and then the rezoning?
can ask any questions that you want, but the way they're listed on the agenda, just the way that we're going down through there, I mean, he's clearly made that a request in his petition or his application that he submitted. So if you wanna take those, you can talk about them any kind of way that you want to, but I guess when we come down to a vote,
It's gonna have to be separate.
This,
I'm fine with discussing it all together.
right, now this buffer zone was,
Yes, sir.
in 2016, was basically an agreement between the developers and the homeowners on.
Denson Farms is the neighborhood that
Yeah,
adjoins.
right, so that was kind of agreement,
Correct.
or, that y'all made.
From my understanding, in 2016, when this first came up, the proposed housing size was 1,500 to 1,700 square feet, which, compared to the houses in Denson Farms, is much less. So I think they were doing that to protect their property value and not have a bunch of houses stacked on their property lines. And we feel like what we're proposing to build is going to protect their property value and actually give them something comparables to pull against that are gonna be just as big, if not bigger, and as expensive. Same price range.
So initially, there was gonna be a smaller square footage, that didn't happen.
Correct.
This, you're coming back with this larger, so you
Yes.
feel like that justifies the buffer being
Yes,
eliminated.
ma'am.
All right. What is your setback on the rear setback on the R1A?
Uh,
25?
yes, 25 feet.
And the rear setback on an R1?
You'd think I'd have all these memorized by now.
It's at 50 or 15?
Rear on a R1 is 50.
50? Okay.
Effectively, what you've got, if I read the 2016 minutes correctly, they rezoned the large portion of that property to R1A, but with the 10-acre buffer or restricted area that you're talking about, they had a minimum lot size in there of 2 acres, which is effectively R1 inside of an R1A, but the restrictions really restrict it to an R1. So that was, I guess, maybe the intentional or unintentional result, but that's kind of the way it fell, based on those minutes.
So it'll go from what was potentially gonna be 2 acres to the 3/4.
That's correct.
Could y'all work with a 3,000 minimum?
I don't think that'll be a problem.
Any other questions? In opposition? To the podium.
Surface area for groundwater drainage to run off and to go various places versus when you slam 3/4 acre lots against us, you're gonna have a significant impact. There's been no watershed hydrology analysis done for this property. The property has 3 creeks running through it. It has a pond on it currently. And there has been no soil borings done on the property to see if it is, a fiscally responsible project to go and build 3/4 acre lots. When I built my home, I had to go 10 feet deep and put in 330 loads of soil to stabilize the clay that was in our county. Everybody's aware of Madison County has heavy clay deposits. So our fear is that they're gonna get this property rezoned all R1A after we've already fought this in 2016. And then realize the surface water just doesn't make sense, the soils just don't make sense. And, you know, to come in here and ask for 56 lots at approximately $120,000 a lot for $6 million and have done exclusively no studies on the traffic impact for approximately 150 cars coming out on North Old Canton, no studies on the watershed impact on the residents of Denson Position. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Good morning. My name is Mike Ward. I live at 635 Cherry Rose Lane. My property does not touch this property, but I'm within 500 or 600 feet. And our concern is the same. It was just stated. We agreed back in 2016 to an agreement to leave it this way. And now they come in, and I just got something from Mark Bounds, I guess it was given to y'all. Mr. Bounds is not here to cross-examine or ask questions of. I don't even know if these men own this property. I think they have it under contract that they're gonna come in and build these houses if they get their way. Well, I moved to Madison County in 1987. I've seen a lot of change. We knew it was coming, but we moved up here because we liked the 2-acre and larger size estates where we live. We all know about the congestion. We were here about 5 months ago. This board heard arguments about the schools, the roads. There's just too much congestion in this area. And I don't believe requiring 3,000 square foot, that just adds to the problem as far as the size of the houses, the water drainage. We love where we live. We knew that there was gonna be change, but we want change that does not affect our property values, our way of life. It does not affect the children's ability to get a good education in schools. And right now, there are houses popping up everywhere. If you go out by Deerfield, it brings more trash on the roads. If you don't believe me, drive out past Deerfield at those new subdivisions. It looks like a garbage dump out there. Somebody recently cleaned it up, but again, when you start stacking houses in high density, you bring in these problems that we're trying to avoid. So there's been no showing of substantial change, which is required by the law. The zoning board, I know, is very well of the preamble in the zoning ordinance law. It's to prevent high density and congestion. And again, we believe that this, if it's changed, is going to enable more congestion, more crowded schools, more traffic. And in years, I know there's talk about widening Yandle, but that's 10 to 15 years away. So I'm asking this board respectfully to consider, I think everybody here is in opposition to this. We're all neighbors, and we would like to keep it the same, and I'm asking y'all to respectfully deny their petition. Thank you.
Good morning. How are y'all today? Everybody from our neighborhood in Denson Farms. Excuse me? Yes, I'm sorry. John Wilkie. I live at 113 Cherry Rose Trail. It backs up to the R1 section on the top of the page that y'all are looking at. Everybody's pretty much mentioned most of the issues that we have, traffic, storm drains, utilities, et cetera. It's really quantity and traffic. There's a lot of houses that everybody wants to come out there and build. And everything up and down Green Oak Lane, part of North Old Canton, our neighborhood, which is 30 plus or minus houses, all are 2 acres or more. Everything out there is estate-sized lots, and it's a lifestyle. So I agree with everybody here. I'd like everybody from Denson Farms to raise their hand. And we've got a lot of representation, and we've done this with you guys before in 2016. We appreciate your help and your consideration, and we're represented by our attorney, Mr. Jim Cruz. Thank y'all.
My name is Mike Armstrong, board, fellow petitioners. Mine's a little bit unique. If you look on page 2 of 3, down in the far right corner is my
location on 683 North Old Canton Road. And behind me is the proposed development. Everything that you've heard so far, I agree with the people that proposed it. However, in my opinion, there is, and is not to this day, there is not a access road available to get to this property. The developer wants to put in a road, which is wonderful, but there is an issue there with the high-tension power lines that run through the property that have a large right-of-way. He proposes to take a little small part of the watershed next to me to put in a road and then cross under the power lines at some point in time. The problem I have with it is I am in that watershed that we talked about earlier with 3 different creeks running. It drains through part of my yard, and I've been keeping it open since 1991, where it will drain on, go across the property that's next to me, goes all the way to Clarkdale Road where it goes under the bridge. All of that is a large V-shaped. To step off of Old Canton Road where he wants to put a road, you're going to be about 10 feet plus or minus below the level of Old Canton Road that fills with water every time we have a heavy rain, and then it slowly drains off. No problem with that. If a proposed road is put in, they will have to cut down all the trees along my property line, more than likely, which will give me a wonderful view of high power lines going by. That kills the aesthetic value of my R1 place that I've been on since 1991. Many people come and they look so beautiful out here. It's peaceful, it's tree-lined. And I'm gonna have car after car, 87 houses, that's 100 cars a day almost, depending on who, trying to get out on Old Canton Road. You heard that opposition. That's gonna be right next door to me. And that's the reason I'm against it, along with the majority of the room here. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Good morning.
Morning.
I'm Jim Cruz. I'm an attorney here in Canton. I was retained by Dr. Scott Simpson, who is also a resident of Denson Farms. He is a pediatric cardiologist at UMMC and is busy helping save children's lives this morning and couldn't be here, but he asked me to speak on his behalf. You've heard very eloquent commentary from some of the residents of this subdivision, and they've taken up a lot of what I was going to say this morning. I won't beat a dead horse with things that have already been said, but I also wanted to just touch on a couple of things. Yesterday I took a ride out to this area, and as everybody in this room has pretty much said, these are 2-acre estate lots, and there's thousands of acres according to the zoning map in this area that are zoned that way. These people want to keep their quality of life. This board has always, in considering a rezoning petition, is faced with whether or not there's been a change in the character of this area. And clearly, that's not been the case here. That's the benchmark y'all face. It's not enough that the developer wants it rezoned so he can build and sell more houses, but whether or not that character of that neighborhood has changed. It hadn't. It's been the same way for years. As my friend and colleague who is in civilian dress today, Mr. Mike Ward, he's an attorney here that I've known for a long time, said, The preamble to the Madison County zoning ordinance states that zoning regulations shall, among other things, be designed to lessen congestion in the streets, prevent overcrowding of land, and to avoid the undue concentration of population. That's what y'all are charged to do, and I know it's a hard job. But we ask that this commission take these factors into account as it considers this petition, and at the end of your deliberations, deny this rezoning request.
Anyone else? I represent Brandon and the real estate side of the transaction here. In regards to watershed, I did consult with two professionals in that industry that can speak to that. As far as water control goes, you know, a big part of why we were going, the developer was going 0.75 acre lots this was not a proposal to put 0.35 acre lots with, you know, which is what's most of what's happening just to the north of that is 1,600 square foot minimums, and we're seeing more and more of that come from the north to the south, and it is coming. That was a big, I do understand quality of life. For 10 years, I've backed up to an empty field that's being developed today. I completely understand that. I think that the next people that approach on this development may be stronger than us, and I think that they would push for a more desirable 200 lot development, desirable from a developer standpoint. I think the $700,000 and $800,000 homes, which would be similar to Eastwood, Ironwood, which are mostly built out at this time. There is a need in the area for inventory. The homes in those $700,000 and $800,000 homes are still selling very fast. There is an obvious need from a real estate standpoint. We do completely understand as far as water control and all that goes. We're sympathetic to that, understand that. That is why we have the engineer and the help, and we also have a professional here that may speak on water control and any guarantees of where that may go. I just wanted to speak on the fact that our goal is not, these are not gonna be $300,000 houses and not 200 of them, so. Anyone speak?
HD Lang Associates is doing the engineering on this. He assures me there's gonna be no water issues for anybody in the surrounding area.
Can't say where the water is gonna go, but I can say where it's not gonna go.
My name is David Stallings. I live at 103 Densing Farm Cove. I'm a resident at Densing Farms. And I've heard everything that the gentleman just said. Wanted to make sure, and I'm sure that you supervisors are aware that the establishment or the development that was approved by the board last year after you all had denied it, we are fighting that in court, and that is not something that's a done deal where we're going to have 800 new homes right north of us. I just wanted to remind you all of that. Also, everything else that's been said, I agree with it completely. I moved here in 2019. I picked where I'm at because I didn't want to walk out my back door and be looking at my neighbor's yard. So please deny this.
Any questions from the commission?
So you said currently you're expecting 153,000 square foot homes?
56.
56, sorry.
Any other question? I entertain a motion.
To be clear, this is on, number 8. It's just the rezoning R1 to R1A.
So that would match the existing, what is R1A, so we're just extending that on this vote.
Correct.
That's correct, yes.
Could we extend that and with the condition of extending that same buffer that exists?
If that's a condition that you wanna impose.
Seems to fall in line with what twenty sixteen was. But extended.
They're fighting a lawsuit with the proposed development north of them, which is, I think he said 800 houses or whatever. And that's gonna be your 15 to 1,700 square foot house. We believe this is a much different product that's needed in the area, and they seem to have a problem with that as well. So I don't know what we can do to, I've met with Denson Farms, let them know that I was coming up here to do this. They received the packets in the mail. I don't know if there's a way we can come to some kind of consensus on maybe a no cut on the property line where, you know, for 25 feet or so, there's no trees cut to let them keep the view that they desire.
I mean, that's down the road, obviously, right? So
What's that?
the 25, you said 25 foot no cut?
Yes, ma'am, that would be something I would
I think
discuss with.
you're willing to discuss that, or you're willing to agree to that?
I would agree to that if that was something that would be appealing to them. I mean, I understand that. I wouldn't want that in my backyard, so I respect their right to get up here and fight that. And I would make some concessions to do that. And I think a 25-foot no cut on a property line that's fully wooded would help in that.
What's that, 25 feet leaving the tree line?
That's correct.
So 25 feet of uncut does not fix 3/4 acre lots shedding water. Our concern is it's 2 acre lots. Like you said, man, if you extend the buffer that is currently below it on the R1, if you extend that buffer to this parcel that's under subject right now in the raid, they'll walk away from it. They've already said 2 acre lots is not profitable for them. That was their comment when we asked them, why can't you leave the buffer in place, develop everything that's R1, as you said, in that parcel, and then develop the buffer as R1, develop everything else in R1A. So you said, great point, extend the buffer up into the parcel that's R1. If you rezone that R1A, extend the buffer up, they'll walk away from it. They just said that. So that doesn't address watershed, traffic. Just having trees is not our thing. I don't want to be emotional up here and say, you know, I don't want to see homes, I don't want to see cars. My focus is on infrastructure. I have a degree, an MCL degree from Mississippi State. You cannot ethically shed water to another homestead. That's why you guys have zoning. R1 is in place so that we don't get watershed, because this is a very low-lying area with multiple creeks. Keeping 25 feet of trees doesn't fix that.
For the water issue, it is being engineered, and his concerns won't be an issue.
Yeah, I thought someone said earlier, you can tell us where the water's not gonna go, and that's to these residents?
That's correct.
And how do you?
I mean, the county has to approve the engineering in the watershed, and that's not gonna be approved if it's backing up in other people's property.
May I ask a question?
Yes, sir.
Did you all meet, with any of the opposition before you come to this meeting?
Yes, sir, I met with them Sunday afternoon,
How did the meeting go?
about like this is going.
Wasn't good then, was it?
Their concerns with water seem to be the biggest topic, which I assured them this is being engineered. They're not gonna allow the water to back up on them.
One comment, Brandon. I thought we had a really good meeting Sunday afternoon, and we received the package do appreciate y'all coming about and talking about it. One of our major concerns is traffic and number of rooftops. You put 56 cars on that road, and where their entrance is right close to the intersection of North Oak Canton and Green Oak. As mentioned earlier, they're all estate-sized houses. And I'm not saying we can't figure out a way to make something work out, but 25 feet when it's already 51 under, or 50 under R1, seems like 50 ought to be the standard. And then we've already agreed, in 2016 for the top parcel to be R1 with the buffer. So your suggestion of extending the buffer, you know, if the neighborhood agreed to it, might be an option. But we don't need to lower the minimums that are already established.
We could do a 50-foot no cut.
I entertain a motion.
I'm gonna make a motion that we will table, this decision on this date and give them the opportunity to meet again. Maybe they can come up with something to kind of resolve this situation.
Is there a second?
No.
I mean, is there evidence that can be provided somehow that the water won't shed? I mean, I know you're worried.
I can get
but-
that from engineering to type up a report.
Typically, and gotta keep in mind, what they're here on today is simply the rezoning, okay? All of these issues that have been raised are extremely valid points, and are often raised here. But those come into play and under review during the plating process, submission to the county engineer with watershed issues, entrance locations. The only thing that they're here today on is rezoning. Obviously, you don't wanna spend a bunch of money on engineering and plating and all that if you can't move forward with the property from a zoning standpoint.
That's correct.
So that's just, if that factors into your consideration at all, just wanted to make that point.
But we need to if we're going to extend a buffer, it would need to be rezoned with that condition.
Correct. That needs to be in your rezoning, motion or whatever you're going to make. If that's what you wanna do, there seems to be indication that that may not be a consensus agreement amongst the parties, at this point, but as Reverend Brown
That's
said,
not solving anything.
perhaps, yeah, that may not solve the issue at the end of the day.
But it sounds like there's some more, I guess, compromise to be made, because you're offering some things that,
Well, I mean, other than
Those
a
come up
2 acre
before.
lot minimum, I'm open for a 50, if they wanted to keep it 50, which is what it's at with the R1 zoning on the property lines, to keep trees, greeneries, whatever's growing. That's a concession I would make.
Let me make a point there too. When you talk about a setback, you're talking about a setback from the property line to a house. And just make sure that you understand, if you agree to an additional no-cut buffer, I mean, that's fine, but you're,
Well, no, I would agree with the 50-foot setback to be no cut.
so you're saying 25 and then the setback.
Well, the
'Cause you're
setback
saying-
doesn't have to be left wooded.
setback for R1A is 25 feet.
So that'd be
Correct.
75.
R1 would be, well,
Well, we would keep it 50 instead of 25.
you presumably want to have some yard and not a house directly adjoining no-cut buffer. I'm getting a little bit out of my.
Got a motion on the floor, table with further study.
Second.
It's been motion and second. All in favor? Aye. Table with further study.
Thank you.
That is likely going to,
That's with both?
be the same for number 9, I would assume.
Yes, sir.
All right. Could we do that formally with a motion and a second, if that's what you so choose?
Okay.
I'll make another motion.
Okay. Second.
Second.
It's motion and prompted second. All in favor?
before y'all shut down on this, we've heard a lot about water.
Excuse me,
Can
sir.
I show you?
Hold on a second. We've already moved and carried on that. Those things are tabled.
Okay, I'm just gonna show you where the water goes, that's it. You've heard a lot about it.
I think that would probably be an appropriate discussion with these gentlemen should you have additional
He's
discussion.
already seen the pictures.
Okay.
I just offered them because it's kinda hard to visualize. When you get 3-inch rain.
McMillan Road, LLC.
Hello, Board. My name's Blake Kress. We are here to discuss, oh, sorry.
Easel's back there behind you if you wanna use that.
And I don't know that we'll have to go through those, but just set them there. So we're here again. We met last month and tabled this petition in order to discuss the possibility of a buffer between the two, the proposed development and Hathaway Lake residents, who many of those people are here today. I stipulated at that time that I wanted Hathaway Lake Homeowners Association to accept or to take the buffer and maintain it. Well, between that meeting and this meeting, several of the members of Hathaway Lake's board resigned, and there's not a functioning board, so no one there to accept or even that could even vote on the possibility of accepting a buffer. So I made the decision to put the buffer, or proposed buffer, on my development. And I went to the engineers and to my designers, and we came up with 40 feet. That's what we could do reasonably that wouldn't drastically affect what I was proposing. I sent this in an email to 29 of the residents on Briscoe, and I did have conversations with several of them. I don't think there's any appetite for the buffer. I do appreciate those that reached out, even though they were opposed. I understand their opposition. I respect their opinions, and, you know, this is a decision that is always difficult, but I think the proposal is not only reasonable, but is in keeping with what is going on in Madison County in this area. So and I can read you what was sent. Dear Briscoe Street residents, as most of you know, I'm in the process of trying to develop 60-acre tract of land north of Hathaway Lake. In the previous planning and zoning meeting, I mentioned the possibility of a buffer between Hathaway and the proposed development. I've been able to determine that I can create a 40-foot buffer on the boundary between Hathaway and the proposed development. I would also be able to place the buffer inside the proposed development, which would eliminate the need for Hathaway Lake Association to accept or maintain this area. I have no idea if anyone in this email chain is interested in this possibility, but I wanted to give each of you an opportunity to consider it and welcome each of you to reach out to me if you would like to discuss the possibility. Feel free to call me at the number below or email me with your contact. I'll be happy to reach out to you. And several did reach out, and again, I do appreciate their willingness to do so, but there was no one was interested in the 40-foot buffer. And so I think we're in an impasse as far as discussions on the buffer, unless there's a change in the conversation as the group gets up here to discuss. I think they're just opposed on just period, on the rezoning, buffer or not. So we are going to represent, I guess, or I don't know if we have to do that. I'm gonna turn this over to my attorney, Neil Bryant, for further discussion, and then we'll obviously allow the opposition to have their discussion.
Okay, this is with a 40-foot buffer.
Well, at this point, there's no consensus on a buffer. You know, I'm willing to have that discussion, but no one wanted to have, at least at 40 feet, and I'm not willing to go beyond that. So the proposal that we have is simply to rezone the 60 acres from R1 to R1B. Now, I'm still willing to concede, but I don't think that's where you're gonna find the majority of these people, that their interests don't lie in trying to create a buffer. I think this is gonna be more of a, we don't want this, and we don't, you know, I'm gonna let them speak. They're here, and they're gonna get up and tell you. And if there is general interest, or I'm happy to concede that. I just don't think you're gonna find that today. So that being said, Neil Bryant, thank you.
Neil Bryant, Neil Bryant for the applicant. Given that this is a tabled motion, I think the best thing to do is take questions from the commission as to any follow-up from our presentation on our application at the previous meeting.
Any questions?
No, I mean, maybe from the opposition.
Okay.
We
Any
can come back.
opposition?
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. My name is Tim Anzenberger. I live at 128 Briscoe Street. I'm one of the houses that directly abuts where the development is going to be built. My wife, Leah Catherine, was here at our last meeting, and she got up and spoke. She wishes she could be here, but she had to take care of our kids this morning. As the commission knows, we submitted a formal protest to the development, to the petition, and we had 13 residents that also directly abut the proposed development on Briscoe join in that petition. Most of them are here, but there are some that also are in the same position as my wife, that they wish they could be here, but they've got work and they've got kids and can't be here on a Thursday morning. But there is great sentiment on Briscoe Road and even in the neighborhood across the street, Camden Lake, that oppose this specific development. I think because this is a tabled motion, and I sort of gave a lengthy legal argument the last time we were here, I thought the best thing to do would be sort of address the buffer and some of the questions that I think were lingering between now and the last meeting. The first issue is the buffer, and to his credit, Mr. Kress gave me a call and we had a long conversation about it. It was a very cordial conversation. I think we got along. I understand where he's coming from, but he understands where we're coming from. And a 40-foot buffer, I think, as Mr. Kress said, is a non-starter. And I think the best way to show you that is it's really difficult to sort of describe the property without you actually having a picture of what this property line looks like and what a 40-foot buffer might be. So let me, if you give me one moment, let me show you a picture. May I approach, Mr. Chairman?
Yeah. Step back. Tim.
So the picture I placed before you, this is a picture from our back porch when you walk out our back door onto the undeveloped area of R1 land where the proposed development's going to be. Our property line ends where the snow begins to turn into, you can see more weeds and grass. That's the property line. And what you'll see is, and the reason I chose this picture of the snow is it kind of shows the beauty, but also it gives you a direct line of sight to this old deer stand back there on one of the oak trees. And that deer stand is probably 80 feet or more away from our house. So if you put a 40-foot buffer, that's probably less than half the distance between that tree stand and where our property line ends. And 40 feet, that's less than the length of a pickleball court. That's like a half of a tennis court. So we were talking about a 40-foot buffer, we were talking about a 25-foot buffer. 40 feet really does nothing for our concerns. And with our house and with many of the houses on Briscoe, the tree line doesn't even start until after 40 feet. You can see ours, if you were to tear that forest down, put a 40-foot buffer in, you're probably gonna have just a field of weeds, and then the houses are gonna start. Another thing that you can see from this picture is that most of the houses on Briscoe sit up above this undeveloped land and look down onto it. So if you put up a fence and you got a 40-foot buffer and then your new neighbor directly behind you puts up a fence, you're gonna see right over it, and you're still gonna be standing on your back porch looking through their back window, which is our concern that we expressed at the last meeting. It's still our concern today. And of course, these cosmetic concerns still don't address traffic, schools, changing the character of this area of Madison County, which is from Hathaway Lake north, R1, and then ag land. And this R1, which is what this is supposed to serve as the buffer between our neighborhood and all the neighborhoods below it and the ag land above Highway 22 above it. There was another concern that was discussed about, well, couldn't this property just be developed anyways? If it's not this development, it could be another. It could be, but it would have to be R1, which it is now. And there's a huge difference between having someone build an R1 home behind Hathaway Lake, which is a minimum 2-acre lot, and an R1B, where we've got 10 to 1,400 square foot lots, one right behind every house, every neighbor looking directly through into somebody else's back porch window. Huge difference. I think most of the people that are in attendance that live on Briscoe are gonna say the same thing. They'd love to have a farm behind their house, forest, farm. What they don't want is somebody where they're looking and they can see what they're watching TV every night. And that point, I think, is critical as we stand here, because the Mississippi Supreme Court, when it addresses the actual legal standard for what this commission has to decide, what the Board of Supervisors has to decide, and what a court would have to decide if this came before it, is that zoning is meant to be permanent and residents can rely on that aspect. The Supreme Court has said, quote, "Changes must be made after careful consideration because investments in land and property are significant financial decisions, and a landowner should be able to rely upon a zoning plan to maintain the use and value of his property." So we are relying on this zoning being R1 and staying R1. If it gets developed, that's fine, that's what we expected, but we expected farms, we expected estates, we didn't expect another cookie cutter neighborhood directly behind our own. That reliance is also in line with the county's land use plan. Chapter 3, which sets forth the objectives, says that R1 tracts should remain residential estate to serve as the buffer between all of the development that's going on in Gluckstadt and the ag land north of Highway 22. All of these concerns, the cosmetics, the reliance, it still is one issue, but the legal standard to actually legally rezone it is still the burden being on the developer to show a substantial change in the character of the area to be rezoned and a public need for the rezoning. So we discussed that at the last meeting, and I'll briefly just touch on it again. There is no public need for rezoning here. Just this week, Fox Business reported that housing supply rose 16.7% year over year, reaching its highest level in 5 years. Business Insider reported that there is $700 billion with a B of unsold housing stock, the highest dollar amount ever, with inventory at a 5-year high, and half of that's been on the market for over 60 days, the highest since 2020. That data nationwide tracks with Madison County and the MLS data I was able to pull from May that shows that we are in a buyer's market in Madison County.
ask you a question. Where the tree line began, is that your property line?
So my property line, it's a little hard to tell, but you see where the snow is white and then it sort of all of a sudden turns where you can see weeds popping up everywhere?
Right.
That's where the property line is.
And you say from there to that deer stand is 80 feet?
It's about 80 feet. Would you? My directly next door neighbor is standing in the back corner. Reggie, would you say that that's about 80 feet to that deer stand? That's correct. So clearly the data shows that there's no public need for rezoning in this specific area. And there's also been no change in the nature of this area. Sure, Gluckstadt is booming. There's neighborhoods going up all over the place south of Stribling Road, but it's already zoned to be that way. So the fact that Gluckstadt's growing and we have neighborhoods popping up left and right there, well, that's in line with the county's land use plan. The area from Hathaway Lake north, that has not changed. There's been no substantial change there. The proposed development would start a change there, but there hasn't been a change yet. So unless there are any questions, I think I would leave the commission with this. The proposed buffer, although I appreciate the efforts, when you actually get a look at it, it really does nothing. It's going to deteriorate property values. It's going to change the character of our neighborhood, of our street, but also of this swath of R1 and A1 land. There is no public need for another neighborhood in this area. And even if there were, the county's land use map has large swaths of low and moderate density housing already planned for in the Gluckstadt area. So build there where it's desirable instead of encroaching into the R1, getting closer to that ag land above Briscoe Street. The legal standard just hasn't been met. And it's not our burden on that, that's the developers, and I just don't think the legal standard's been met, and I think for practical purposes, this 40-foot buffer and these overtures, it doesn't really make a difference in the long run, despite me appreciating my wife and I, Mr. Kress's efforts to engage with us. Thank you.
I have a question.
Yes.
What is the zoning of Hathaway Lake?
I think Hathaway Lake is R1B.
R2 PUD.
Okay.
R2 PUD.
Thank you.
May I respond to some?
Yes.
To Mr. Anzenberger's last point, go build on the property that's already zoned for this necessitates that that property be for sale. We can't just go build on property because it's properly zoned. He brought up the issue of relying on what property is zoned. This was brought up in the prior meeting. And many property owners in Hathaway Lake said that they relied on the fact that this property was zoned R1 when they bought their property, and that it should stay the same. That's not exactly the case. This property, for 15 out of the 20 owners on Briscoe Street, that property was zoned A1 when they bought their houses prior to when the zoning map was amended November the 18th, 2019, where A1 properties in growth patterns in the county were taken from A1 and put in R1 to get around and to deal with a statute that the legislature passed that said that counties and municipalities could not go in and regulate activities that were done on agriculturally zoned property. It is in the minutes. Mr. Weeks makes the comments. The board, same thing. Even CMPDD, when the zoning map was proposed, they're clear. That's what they were doing, trying to keep a hand on the wheel so you didn't get a pig farm next to Hathaway Lake. That's why it's R1, not because it was intended to forever be estate lots. So as far as the buffer goes, I agree, it does not satisfy anyone, and frankly, it costs my client, I don't know, like $100,000? $100,000 to put that buffer in. Andy, what is the minimum buffer between residential subdivisions under the zoning ordinance?
In
An R1? For just a minimum buffer, a buffer zone. What would it be between, for instance, between R1B and R2? There is none. There's not one. This is something that we were willing to do to appease neighbors because we want to get along. But if they're not happy with it, my client would like to put that $100,000 into the development of this subdivision if that's possible. So I'm not sure what else to do. I understand they don't want this rezone to go through. That's very common. I just don't see that property can be tied up. There's not a legally cognizable right to protect here in this property. You don't have a visual easement over your neighbor's property. You don't have the right to rely that your neighbor's property will always be zoned a certain way. That is why this body exists, to look at and appropriately rezone properties. So anyway, any other questions from based on his comments, our prior presentation last month? I'm happy to address. Mr. Kress is happy to address.
It seems that last time we were tabling it because they were gonna see if Hathaway would take on that buffer, and that's not an option, right, at this point?
Well, I don't believe that it is.
Right, so I don't, and from what I understand, they don't really care about a 40-foot buffer.
That is my understanding as well, so that's why we are asking that our original application that does not include a buffer be considered by the commission.
I have a question. Scott, was Hathaway Lake, did they have to have a rezoning before they built or developed Hathaway Lake?
If I'm not mistaken. It was agricultural.
It was A1.
It went from A1 to
From A1 to R2.
R2.
Availability of sewer.
Mr. Kress was the developer of Hathaway Lake.
So, the last time we were here, you wanted to meet with the homeowners board. As Mr. Kress ably pointed out, the homeowners resigned. We're having a meeting in 12 days to elect a board. Now, he runs our HOA. He's the only member of the HOA property on the LLC. So he does take money from our neighborhood. I think he agrees with that. Yeah, he does. Kress manages our neighborhood. And now wants to build one behind us, which is fine. But he ought to give a little bit of time to elect a board because, yes, he did email us. And why? Because he runs our HOA. He had our email addresses, but he made no attempt to meet with the affected residents. He could have called us. He could have said, hey, come to my office. Let's talk about a barrier. But he did not do that. He emailed us and said, give me a call if you have a problem. I think everybody in Briscoe would say 40 feet is not is a problem. But he could have met with us. He could have attempted to do something besides an email. And none of the people on this board, do y'all go out to the properties that you're changing? I think it's necessary for y'all to look at what you're doing. It's necessary to see. It affects, we pay taxes too. We pay taxes on our property. And all we're asking for is to give us time to get a board in place. They're gonna say that's not necessary. He's giving us a 40-foot border or whatever it's called, and he doesn't have to do that. But he made no attempt to meet with us other than email. And he could have said, let's get together and come up with a reasonable proposal. But he didn't do it.
What was the original buffer that you wanted Hathaway to take? What was that?
He said 25 feet.
So you're
40
doing
feet's just not gonna do it. But I'm just gonna turn it over to somebody else. I think Shay wants to say something.
Hey, my name's Shay Landry. I live
at 122 Briscoe Street. I just wanted to address a number of points, the last one maybe being the most important. But number one, what wasn't brought up in the first meeting is that, in fact, Mr. Kress is in charge of our HOA management company. And I think one thing that an HOA management company is intended to do is, number one, enforce the bylaws, but also to ensure the property values stay at minimum the same, if not increase. But in effect, by building a neighborhood behind ours, I think it's a conflict of interest, because he's supposed to keep our property values the same or increase, but this is effectively going to drop our property values. Every one of my neighbors will tell you that the reason we moved into those houses was because of the aesthetics behind the house. If you remove those aesthetics, you remove the value of my home. Number two, going to the buffer, that is correct. We weren't given the opportunity. He doesn't have to give us that opportunity, and I understand that, and I respect that. But 40 feet is just not enough. In a row of pines where the foliage is 100 feet in the air, 40 feet means nothing. And I'll be happy to show you a picture of 40 feet with my daughter standing 40 feet away from my property to show you exactly what 40 feet looks like. I mean, and I used my rangefinder to assure that I was standing at 40 feet from her. So that'll show you. And I'm happy to do that if you would like.
No, I think we've got a visual.
Oh, okay. Well, I was just gonna show you that's 40 feet. And, again, that's 13 yards. Lastly, it was just brought to my attention, and I did not realize this, that there's a bald eagle that we think may have a nest in that property. And I've got pictures of the bald eagle in those trees. As you know, that's our lake. As you know, federal wildlife prohibits disturbing of any, there's it in the trees. That's the trees that we're proposing building on. Federal wildlife prevents you from disturbing any bald eagle's nest. And I'm happy to show y'all all more. This is the picture of the eagle at our lake. That's at our lake. And this is in our trees. This is in the trees.
For the record, I have a
So-
federal wildlife guide from the federal government coming out there.
And there's more of them on the power line, which abuts the land that he's proposing building on. So I did not know that until literally today. And I think that in and of itself precludes someone from building back there if there is an eagle's nest back there. I think that's all I need to say today, and I appreciate the audience. Thank y'all very much.
I'm gonna point out that this board's not bound by the fact that the feds may come in and tell us we can't develop the property because there may be a bald eagle or wetlands or any other type of federally regulated problem with the property. That should not be a picture on a cell phone, should not be a reason to be determinative
So you
here.
said that you're gonna have a board with Hathorn, right?
Yes,
Soon,
in 12 days.
but that was for, y'all were gonna agree to take 25 feet?
We don't need their
They're
board to be in
offering
place.
40.
You know what? It is absolutely horrific that they are saying that they don't need a board. We need a board at Halfway Lake to make decisions, one of which he just said that he would allow us to get another HOA management. Now,
Sir, can you go to the podium and speak?
Yeah, there you go.
so we don't have to, he's right, he doesn't have to have a board.
So
But
I think, am I right in saying that's because you were offering the
Yes,
40
that's
foot,
what I
not
stated into the
asking you to take the 25?
But we,
Hang on, hey guys, let's not talk over each
yeah,
other.
exactly.
Sorry.
So we don't need a 40 feet buffer. He's right about that. But Hathaway Lake deserves a chance to have a board to negotiate properly. And further than that, he's right about that bald eagle. And we have a right to look at that, regardless of this attorney saying that it doesn't give you the right. It does give you the opportunity to table that until the federal wildlife inspector can come out there, whether he believes it is or not.
But that's something past rezoning, right?
Correct.
It may be past rezoning, but I'm gonna tell you, I think you have a duty, a very big duty, to allow Hathaway Lake. He hasn't negotiated with us on anything. He emailed us.
There's nothing to negotiate.
I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to
Hey, guys, let's.
There's nothing to, he has not tried to negotiate. He could meet with us. He could absolutely meet with the neighbors and come up with a reasonable buffer. Nobody back here is unreasonable. None. But to email us and say, hey, this is what I'm gonna do, not fair, not appropriate. And all we're asking for is a meeting with him. And I think that's reasonable.
To answer your question, Amanda, you're correct. Once again, as I stated previously in the meeting today, the only thing that we're here about today is rezoning. Your decision today has no bearing one way or the other. Approval or denial has no bearing on their ability to move dirt or take down trees, or that's a separate permitting issue. So if that's responsive to your answer, if you all have other answers, or other questions rather.
There's been so much talk, I just kind of wanted to bring us back to the question, which I think Mr. Clark just articulated. The question is rezoning. That's what's before the commission. And to rezone, there has to be a public need and a change in the area. So those are what the two questions are. We haven't heard any of that today from the developer, but I put the data in front of you that there is no public need. The area hasn't changed. The reliance and everything like that, those are discussions to have, but the legal question, the standard, is public need and change, which there hasn't been. And I would also say that the reliance issue, that wasn't just coming from me, that was coming from the Mississippi Supreme Court that said citizens have a right to rely because they put an investment in property. So that's not just me, that's the highest court in this state. Thank you.
I'm not disputing the reliance. I'm saying that it was not R1 when 15 of the 20 homeowners bought their property. It was A1. As far as evidence of need and a change in the character of the neighborhood, that's because we're back for a tabled motion. We did that in the prior meeting. That's all in the record. I'm happy to go through it again if I need to, but that was covered extensively at the last meeting and everything is in the record.
At this time, I entertain a motion.
Actually, the rezoning request maintains the existing character of the neighborhood. It not only maintains the existing character, it upgrades it on lot size. And the path of growth of Madison County is that way. I looked at new houses in MLS to see what was for sale on new construction. There are only 55 houses in that area, west of I-55, 55 houses of new construction. They range from 1,725 square feet to 4,205 square feet. The median cost is $511,000. And I believe that the median size is 2,400 square feet. We have a lot of development. We have a lot of industrial development coming. A lot of jobs. So you can't convince me that there's not a need for housing. And for that reason, and for these reasons, I move that their zoning request be accepted, be approved with their proposed 40-foot buffer.
I'm gonna second that.
It's been moved and properly second that the request be granted. All in favor? Aye. Ayes have it, so it is. Motion to close public hearing. Move.
Second.
All in favor? So it is. Motion to set the date for July 10th. So moved. All in favor? Motion to adjourn. So moved.
All right, Mr.